In 67 BCE, an entire Roman army collapsed in the mountain passes of the Black Sea. Thousands of soldiers under the command of Pompey the Great fell into violent, uncontrollable seizures. They were not struck down by enemy blades or arrows. They were incapacitated by the honey they had scavenged from abandoned hives. This honey was laced with potent granotoxins from the nectar of the rhododendron ponticum flower. The men lay paralyzed and delirious on the cold forest floor, easy prey for their waiting enemies. It was a devastating tactical failure caused by a simple, golden substance. I mean, think about that for a second. The history of honey is not a story of sweet comfort, but of a volatile, ancient weapon. It started long before the Romans ever marched into the East. In the Cuevas de la Araña in Spain, a rock painting from 6000 BCE captures the earliest human interaction with the hive. A lone figure clings to a vine, reaching into a rock crevice to harvest wild honeycomb. The bees swarm in the air, a chaotic cloud of stinging insects protecting their survival. This was the first time a human decided to steal the labor of a wild colony. By 2400 BCE, the practice had evolved from desperate scavenging into state-sanctioned agriculture. Reliefs in the Sun Temple of Nusret-Ini at Abu Ghurab show Egyptian workers blowing smoke into clay hives. The smoke calmed the bees, allowing the workers to extract the precious combs without destroying the nest. Honey became the lifeblood of the Egyptian state. It was poured into jars to preserve fruits and meats against the desert heat. It was used as a medicinal ointment to treat the wounds of laborers and soldiers alike. 3,000 years later, archaeologists would find this same honey in a tomb at Saqqara, still chemically preserved. This decision to manage the bee changed the landscape of the ancient world. It was not long before the Greeks and Romans sought to master the biology of the hive. Aristotle spent his days observing the activity of the colonies in his treatise Historia Animalium. He documented the complex behavior of the insects, though he mistakenly labeled the queen as a king. The Romans took this observation and turned it into an industrial manual. Columella wrote De Re Rustica, detailing how to construct hives from bark, wicker, and hollow logs. He taught the Roman world how to turn a wild insect into a predictable, managed asset. Pliny the Elder noted that honey from Mount Hybla and Mount Hymettus was a luxury traded for gold. The trade routes expanded, and the honeybee became an essential component of the Mediterranean economy. But the obsession with this liquid gold eventually crossed the Atlantic. In 1622, English settlers brought the Apis mellifera species to the Virginia colony. Indigenous populations watched the swarms arrive and called them the white man's flies. The introduction of these bees fundamentally altered the North American ecosystem. The scale of production grew through the centuries, but the biology of the bee remained a hurdle. In 1851, an American clergyman named L. Langstroth solved the mystery of the bee space. He discovered that bees consistently maintain a gap of roughly 6 to 9 millimeters. He patented a hive design with movable frames based on this precise measurement. This allowed beekeepers to harvest honey without destroying the colony for the first time. The invention triggered a massive boom in commercial apiculture across the globe. But the success of the industry created a dark, modern shadow. The global market became flooded with honey laundered with corn syrup and beet sugar. The push for mass-scale production placed an unprecedented strain on the health of the colonies. In 2006, the entomologist Diana Cox Foster identified a catastrophic phenomenon known as colony collapse disorder. Worker bees simply vanished from their hives, leaving behind only the queen and the immature young. The causes were many, ranging from invasive Varroa destructor mites to the widespread use of neonicotinoid pesticides. The industry that once fed empires now faces a systemic, potentially terminal, decline. The bees that built the foundations of human food security are failing under the weight of industrial demand. You hold a jar of honey in your hand, unaware of the ancient violence and modern greed it conceals. The history of this substance is a cycle of manipulation that has pushed a vital species to the brink of collapse. You are now a participant in an unsustainable trade that threatens the very pollinators you depend on to survive. The collapse of the hive is not a distant concern. It is a silence growing in the fields around you.